Hello and welcome to Abe's Complete Star Trek podcast, where I discuss anything. I'll be going through every single Star Trek episode. Today I'll be discussing the 16th episode of the original series, entitled Shore Leave. This is an episode, another episode I've been very much looking forward to doing. It's certainly a fun one, designed to... It's a real kind of play type episode, for lack of a better way to phrase it, where the first idea of a fantasy planet or a non-holodeck kind of comes in. I love so the episode starts with the Enterprise orbiting what appears to be an Earth-like planet, and we start on the bridge where Spock and Kirk are talking about how they're waiting for a report from the landing party of some form to find out, what the planet's like, and how, given what the crew's been through for the past 3 months, that they are in desperate need of shore leave, desperate need of a rest. Spock being the exception to the rule, as he loves to make himself being. And after that, Kirk goes down to his quarters, and then we get down to the planet. Now, on the planet, we have Sulu and McCoy just wandering around, along a river, and what appears to be a really beautiful kind of parkland. And personally, wouldn't mind going someplace there myself, kind of setting up a little camp or picnic or something for the day. It's kind of been a while since I've done something like that. I'd have to see about doing that with the family at some point. Anyway, and they're, kind of commenting on how idyllic this place would be for shore leave, for people to come down, rest, recuperate, enjoy the river, enjoy the scenery, and just recover from grueling kind of 3 months that they've had. McCoy makes the comment that it's this place is something out of Alice in Wonderland. Which I can agree with to a point, depending on your interpretation of the book. And after that, Sulu goes off to get some biology samples, like samples of plants and grass and whatnot. Being a botanist, it's kind of a hobby of his, so I'm not too surprised that's what he's off doing. And then you've got McCoy's wandered off a little bit, and all of a sudden, he sees a giant white rabbit. With the whole, I'm late, ooh, I'm gonna be late. And then the rabbit wanders off, and then you see a blonde girl in a blue dress wandering by asking about the rabbit, and it's as if McCoy's thoughts on the whole Alice in Wonderland thing have kind of come to life. Who knows how this can be? Anyway, after the girl runs off after the rabbit, he calls Sulu over, and Sulu, who has been too busy looking at plants, has not seen any of this, and so has no idea what's going on. But so McCoy is wondering a little if he's going crazy, given the fact that those kind of things just don't happen. So let's see if we can find out why they did. Okay, so after the opening titles, we have Kirk in his quarters. Spock comes in just after Spock comes, or just before. He tells the yeoman that he's not planning on beaming down, even though he's shown by rubbing his eyes and kind of yawning and all these kinds of things that he is getting tired himself, but he's not planning on beaming down. Not long after Spock comes in, Kirk asks if he's going to be beaming down, and Spock makes quite the, I'd have to agree, quite the logical kind of comment. That on his planet to rest is to rest, to cease using energy, and that it makes little sense to use energy when you're meant to be saving it. I can certainly understand and appreciate that point of view, but I will also say that there can be other ways to de-stress as well. Some people just enjoy a nice quiet walk in parkland and a nice kind of forest-like situation, I guess, to just forget about the cares of the world and just be able to focus on yourself and re-energize. It can be quite relaxing, and so which I do miss doing. As I said, it's something which I haven't done for a while. Anyway, McCoy then calls up to the ship and tells Kirk about his encounter with Alice in Wonderland. Kirk's not buying it. Thinks that McCoy's trying to put a little mystery down to get him to beam down, but Kirk's not having it. And I gotta admit, I love so much what Spock does next. It's one thing which had me cacking myself up the first time I heard it, and cacking me up now. But he says, I got a report here from Dr. McCoy's log, where it says there's a crewman aboard who has been showing signs of stress and fatigue, is getting increasingly aggravated and quarrelsome, and is refusing to his reaction times down and all these other kind of negative effects. And says that he's refusing to beam down, which Spock says, this is right, and then Kirk interrupts him and says, while he does his rights end when it affects the safety of the ship, and whoever this crewman is, he'll beam down on my orders. Who is it? Spock replies, James Kirk. Love it. Oh, I love it so much. And you can tell the look, this rather stony look that Kirk is giving Spock at that point. And Spock is saying, enjoy your shore leave, Captain. I believe you'll find it a nice planet to beam down to. Very pleasant, very green. Oh, that is beautiful. Well done, Spock. You get double thumbs up from me. Anyway, so let's see what happens when Kirk beams down to the planet. Okay, so Kirk does beam down with his yeoman. Just before he does, we see that a gun kind of appears underneath a rock as the rock moves itself. But just after he beams down, he meets up with a couple of people from one of the scout parties, Rodriguez and Teller, who are just giving a flora kind of report. Everything's okay. There's nothing to be concerned about. Kirk says, that report's fine. You're right to go and enjoying yourselves, and starts heading in the direction of Dr. McCoy. They use the word restful a lot in this episode. I mean, this is a minor kind of creative gripe for me. I do agree that it's a fair descriptive word, but surely, the writers of the episode had access to a thesaurus to find other words to kind of describe the area, because it, does come off a little repetitive in that early stage. For me, anyway. Moving on, though, they meet up with McCoy, and McCoy points out that, I may have been hallucinating, but how do you explain these? And he's pointing to, footprints that are on the ground. And, he can't explain it, Kirk can't explain it, and so Kirk decides to hold off on shore leave until it can be explained, which is certainly fair enough, because in order to make sure that his crew are kept safe, he does need to make sure that there's nothing there that they need to be concerned about. Not long after this, they start hearing gunshots, and there's a beautiful kind of chase sequence that happens here, even though there's ultimately nothing to worry about, because all it is that when you get to the end of it, you see Sulu kind of just pointing this gun, which was under the rock, just target shooting. And Kirk eventually, just like the mean parent, takes the gun off the kid. How mean, Kirk. But yeah, anyway, until they're able to explain how some of these things are happening, he takes the gun off Sulu. But I do have to, there is a little blooper here of sorts. And I'm going to make a bit of a plug to one of my favourite scenes from The West Wing. So you've got CJ, who's in, this is, I think, at the end of the 4th season from memory, where Mark Harmon is there playing a Secret Service agent who's on on CJ's protective detail, and she's just finished working out of the gym and passing the FBI, the Secret Service's gun practice range. Shooting range, and CJ is getting a little trigger happy and wants to try one of the things out. So I'm just going to call him Agent Mark because I've forgotten what his proper name, what his character's name is. But Special Agent Mark, I'm sure he'd find quite amusing by calling him that. But anyway, takes CJ down to the shooting range, and she's initially offered a smaller gun, something that would be more easier for her to use as a first timer, but declines and gets offered and says, "I want to use what you're using, the Smith & Wesson kind of pistol that he's got." She initially takes a shot and ends up landing on her ass as a result. Very quite funny. But then she says, "Look, I'll make you a bet that if you're able to get all shots dead center, that I'll say something nice about you." He does this. She does say something nice about him. And after she's walked off and is out of line of sight of him and the gun, he does the whole kind of old Western kind of spinning the gun around before, instead of putting it in a holster, putting it in the front of his pants, which is not the smartest of ideas because after firing a gun, it does get rather hot. And the gun that Sulu has found in this episode is not all that different, would have a similar kind of reaction, and yet not long after firing it, mere seconds after firing it, less than a minute easily, Kirk goes and puts it in his pants. And Kirk does not have a similar reaction. So one, you can tell that it was firing blanks. And two, that really is I know it's just a technical blooper, but it is still a blooper nonetheless. It should have been picking up on that. But anyway, after he takes the gun away, they notice that that the rabbit that McCoy saw initially at the start of the episode must have gone through where they are, and so they start following the track. So let's keep going with the episode. All right, so after they've got Sulu and Barrows, who's Kirk's yeoman, who are following the tracks in one direction while McCoy and Kirk go in the other. As McCoy and Kirk are talking, they are kind of reminiscing about old academy times and how McCoy is starting to get a bit of a persecution complex because of no one believing him about this rabbit because they haven't seen it themselves, although there is evidence that something passed through. And you've got so after that, Kirk orders, they are talking about the some time that Kirk had at the academy, how he was getting pecked on by a guy named Finnegan. And how Finnegan was a consummate practical joker. And Kirk, being the serious person that he was, didn't really take it too well. Which is, just as a brief side note and something that I will get to eventually. Don't ask me when, but I will be discussing the whole J.J. Abrams timeline and movies as well when I get there in 2, 3, 4 years. I don't know, however long it takes me to do it. But completely different to the Kirk that's in that timeline, which, yeah, I can certainly understand, given the nature of the events that occurred. But again, I'll save that conversation for later. Anyway, so he orders McCoy to follow the rabbit while he, follows the blonde girl's footprints. Not surprising, although Kirk, be aware she is underage, so don't have any designs. It's disturbing that I have to say that on something like this, but still. Just as McCoy goes out of camera view, surely he's got to be an earshot of what's going on, because he doesn't. It's like 2 seconds after he walks out of line of sight of the camera. Kirk hears this kind of laughing and cackling and sees Finnegan turning up out of nowhere. And he clocks one, clocks Kirk one. Finnegan clocks Kirk in the face, and is all kind of jeering and taunting. Adam. Kirk initially, takes the bait and starts to wrestle him a little bit, but then he hears Yeoman Barrows screaming, and so he leaves Finnegan where he is and starts, chasing after, towards Barrows. Joins McCoy mid-run, I suppose, and I find that Yeoman Barrows is being attacked, for lack of a better word, and we'll kind of get the explanation of what happened there in the very next section. Before I get into what happened with Yeoman Barrows, one thing which I'll comment I will make is a bit of a recurring thing that happens at different parts of this episode, is that as people are wandering around, we see a weird, I swear it's an old 60s antenna, kind of popping up in different places, doing something. At this stage, we don't know what. I could comment, but I'll save it for when we actually get the proper explanation in the episode. Anyway, so we find out that that Yeoman Barrows was attacked by some guy in a cloak with a dual dagger, to which McCoy makes a comment that it sounds like Don Juan. I've never really read romance novels, but I swear if that's how Don Juan behaves, in terms of attacking the women that he's meant to be, I guess, seducing, because that's the way I've always kind of pictured him to be, this really charming, flattering kind of muscular male type character. But if he, I don't really care for him that much if that's the way he treats people he's meant to be looking after. But anyway, he, still, brief side note, Kirk asked where Sulu, that it was happening, what was Sulu doing, and saying that Sulu is kind of chasing after him. So Kirk decides to go after Sulu and this Don Juan character. As he's running around, I just got to say that next scene, typical Kirk. Here's where the ladies' man bit comes in. As he's running, trying to find out where Sulu went, he runs into a flower. More kind of... This, to me, has got kind of a Greek kind of appearance to it in some respects for me. What I picture a kind of Greek garden to look like, and after he's looking and smelling the flowers, obviously bringing back some pleasant memories, and then he looks up and sees this woman who is what I would picture Aphrodite to look like in some respects, and Kirk recognizes her as a woman from his past named Ruth, someone who also very much shouldn't be on this planet. And there's kind of a recurring theme that's happening at this point to, people's thoughts becoming real, which can be very good in some respects. Don't get me wrong. I'd love the thought that I'm having right now of winning $1 million in the lotto, or certainly having no debt and owning my own house and a few other kind of basic, kind of no worries type dreams that I'm having to come true. But there are also some other thoughts and dreams that are best kept into my own head, which will not be coming out on this podcast for so many reasons, which also shouldn't come out in a situation like this either. So there are kind of pros and cons to this kind of scenario. But let's see if Kirk is starting to pick up on this and where things go from here during this meeting with his old girlfriend. So Kirk is still stunned that Ruth is around. He makes a comment that it's been 15 years since they last saw each other, and that he has no idea how she could possibly be there. She kind of makes an offhand comment that it doesn't matter, the fact is I'm here, and then as he's trying to find out some more information, in a dazed kind of state because he's stunned at seeing this woman from his past, he keeps getting communications, especially from Dr. McCoy, who's trying to find out if Kirk has managed to find Sulu. Kirk in his own dreamy way, I'm sure he's fine. He's cool. It's almost like Kirk is drugged a little. The way he's reacting. After that, Rodriguez, the person that Kirk met when he had, or the crewman that Kirk met when he initially beamed down, makes a comment that he had seen a whole flock of birds, which was surprising because they're I do have to pull up another blooper with this episode, because there was a comment made earlier, just after they'd found Sulu with the gun, that upon doing when they first arrived, upon doing scans of the planet, they found no life forms whatsoever, no birds, animals, insects, or anything else. Now, which can't possibly be which cannot be possible, because in order for an ecosystem to survive, at the very least there needs to be insects to be able to kind of pollinate the flowers and whatnot. I mean, I love the kind of the story the bee movie has in the whole subject, that when bees stop flowering, start pollinating, honey starts being made, flowers stop being able to be pollinated properly, so they die off. As a result of the flowers dying off, plants die off. As a result of plants dying off, there becomes no oxygen. If there's no oxygen, then there's no life. And so while I do find flies and bees utterly annoying, don't get me wrong at that point, I do understand their usefulness. But there's no way that there could be no life whatsoever on this planet, for that ecosystem to survive. Anyway, getting back on track. After Kirk orders Rodriguez to have everyone meet at the glade so they can kind of discuss the situation and what they've all encountered and found thus far, Spock calls down from the ship and says that he's detected a rather large power field emanating from beneath the surface of the planet that indicates some kind of industrial activity. So what this activity is, we don't know quite yet, but it certainly would have something to do with with what's going on and with all these people and things showing up from from out of nowhere. So let's see what more information gets gleaned. Okay, so now we're back to Barrows and McCoy. We're walking along and just essentially talking about what's happened and how and initially when she was walking through here, she was thinking that in this kind of fairy tale like location, that a woman should be dressed as a fairy princess with lots of floaty type things. And McCoy makes a comment that then you'd have a lot of Don wants to fight off, and me too. So this is him having a chance at her. And then not too long afterwards, a dress similar to the one that she's been picturing shows up. Just hanging in the bushes. And McCoy makes a comment that it really is beautiful. I'd like to see you in it. She's a little nervous because she doesn't know where it came from. But McCoy's like, well, it's here. Don't know how, why, but let's not look a gift horse in the mouth, and I would like to see you in it. And so she agrees to get changed as long as he stays where he is. Makes a bit of a cheeky line. My dear, I am a doctor. When I peek, it's in the line of duty. And so while she's getting changed, and he does try to, without moving, just kind of lean back a little to see if he can see anything. Cheeky McCoy, but to be honest, I can't blame him. Esteban Rodriguez, contacts him and there's kind of a humming sound in the background. Which is kind of gobbling the communications a little bit, but he's passing on the captain's orders to meet back at the glade where they were first found. And here's my next little gripe with the episode. After communications seem to drop out, the scene changes to to Rodriguez and Teller, I'll call it secondary survey team. To which they are very nervous because they're seeing a tiger. Now, I can understand the fear that a tiger causes. Do not get me wrong at that point, because they can be dangerous animals. But you are there with a phaser, man. If you are scared of the damn thing, shoot it. You don't have to kill it. Just stun the damn thing till you're out of the way. I mean, come on. Kind of the point of that, isn't it? But anyway, after that, Barrows comes out, dressed in the princess outfit. I do have to admit, works well for her. And McCoy, admittedly pays his admiration, compliments of admiration and whatnot, how she looks, and they start walking back to the glade where Kirk and McCoy first met when Kirk beamed down. So we're about to get to the expositional part of the episode where ideas are discussed and kind of thoughts and whatnot. Kirk is called up to the ship to talk to Spock, to try and kind of get some explanation from him, to see if Spock's got any ideas in terms of what's going on, because there's been a couple of personalities that Kirk has encountered: the birds, the rabbit, which McCoy saw, which started this whole roller coaster ride. And Spock initially raises the question, could they be hallucinations? Kirk replies, well, one of them did punch me in the face pretty hard. To which Spock quite understandably replies, that would have been a painful reality. So anyway, after that brief conversation and Kirk seeing the birds that Rodriguez had reported earlier, the scene cuts to Sulu, who, as he's walking along, encounters a samurai who tries to attack him quite viciously. He manages to escape, but here's where we find out the phasers are no longer working. I can understand if the tiger came along after this point, why Rodriguez tried not to shoot the thing, because he may have tried earlier and it had no effect. But the order of these scenes, in my mind, was done a little bit wrong. But anyway, because Sulu tries to shoot the samurai, but finds out that the phasers have got no power and he's unable to do so. He's running away quite fast and eventually encounters the captain. The samurai has stayed in his little zone, I suppose. And not too long after encountering Sulu, Spock beams down. Spock says, I've kind of been tracking the power source, and I can rationalize I was able to beam down just one person, so I decided to. I'd be more help on the surface than I would be on the ship. Another blooper, because they haven't invented this technology yet, is that Sulu makes a comment that someone's trying to beam down from the bridge. Not possible, because they haven't invented site-to-site transporting at this point. That doesn't happen until next generation at the very least. And feel free, someone to correct you on that point, but should have just been someone trying to beam down from the ship rather than from the bridge. But yeah, so let's see what further information an assistant Spock can have with the ongoing mystery that is occurring down on this weird planet. So next we cut to McCoy and Barrows, who have returned to the to the glade where they first met, and they're making McCoy makes a side comment that a princess shouldn't be afraid, where you've got a brave knight to protect you. It cuts back to Kirk, Spock, and Sulu, who hear the sound of a tiger growling, and they agree to spread out to try and find it, which, odd thing, yes, let's walk towards the danger. I know I may have made this comment in my other podcast. I'm not quite sure if I've made it in this one before, but I will, in case I haven't, I'm going to make it here now. But this reminds me of a line from one of my favourite Stargate Atlantis episodes with which Daniel Jackson appears in. Spoiler alert for those who haven't watched it. Quite frankly, it's been 10 years or some kind of long time like that since this came out, so if you haven't, I'm sorry, but you really should. Anyway, he's talking with Rodney McKay about best plans for distraction, and McKay is says I would kind of blow up something over here so that all the people would run to where this explosion is, so that there'd be less kind of people guarding what I'm trying to get to. Whereas, and Jackson makes quite the logical comment, which I very much have to agree with. What makes you think that if there was an explosion, people would be running towards it? So what I would do, I rest my case exactly. Because were it me, I would kind of boost my guards, to defend whatever it is I was trying to protect. I very much have to agree with that sentiment. And while in this episode they're not trying to guard anything per se, but it makes no sense to go towards a danger when there's no real reason to. I mean, why go after a tiger when you got more important things on your plate? Anyway, the scene cuts back to McCoy and Barrows when a black knight shows up, again, out of nowhere. McCoy is initially saying that this is a hallucination, it can't hurt me, tells Barrows to go wait by the tree where she was standing before. And then as the knight is charging McCoy, we see Kirk and Spock miraculously in the glade. There's obviously just been mere seconds in between them looking for this tiger, and obviously when Kirk was looking for Sulu a few minutes ago to kind of get to where he was, it took some time for him to get there, a lot longer than a few seconds. There's no way he would have been back there that quickly, so yet another blooper for this episode. Anyway, they are able to witness McCoy getting stabbed by this Black Knight's lance and dying. Spock's phaser doesn't work, but Kirk remembers a gun that he got from Sulu and manages to fire for a few rounds at the knight, who ends up dying. The horse just wanders off wherever. Kirk and Spock go wandering after go running towards McCoy and confirm that yes, he is indeed dead. So we cut back to an understandably distraught Yeoman Barrows at McCoy's death, and Kirk kind of shakes her into line a little bit. I need everyone alert and thinking here because we're in this kind of dangerous situation. After he gets her under control, Sulu has appeared and is checking out the Black Knight, and Kirk calls Kirk over. And we see that there's not a human in there, but like a dummy. You can tell it's a fake kind of thing that's in there. He calls Spock over, and Sulu goes to check on Yeoman Barrows. And Spock, after scanning with the tricorder, makes the comment that that it's similar material to everything else down here. The animals, the plants, the people are all made out of the same thing. They're all being manufactured. And Kirk is wondering by who and what. What the heck is going on here? It certainly is a very valid question. I mean, whatever it is, it's got to do something with that 60s style antenna, which is somehow reading their thoughts and generating these things. But let's before I go too far and kind of get to the real explanation part of this episode, let's just keep watching a little bit more. So Rodriguez and Teller are encountering an old style, like World War II fighter plane, which does a strafing run on them, and they manage to survive that, although Teller faints as a result of what's happening. Then back at the glade, where Barrows, Sulu, Kirk and Spock are distracted by the plane flying overhead, they notice that McCoy and the Black Knight's bodies are being taken away. And Spock is about to give a bit of an explanation. It's not going to sound very scientific, he says, but he asks the question of Kirk, what were you thinking prior to the to encounters that you had? And Kirk says, I was kind of reminiscing about my academy days, and a few seconds later, Finnegan appears once again. So Spock seems to be figuring it out, but he doesn't have time to be able to give an explanation of what's happening. Kirk chases after Finnegan and orders Spock to take the rest of them to try and find out where McCoy's body went. As he's chasing Finnegan, there's lots of jeering and taunting kind of going on, but Kirk finally manages to to catch up to him, and let's see how this encounter kind of proceeds. So basically, when Kirk is trying to find some answers out of Finnegan, Finnegan beats the crap out of him. To the point, Kirk initially starts to get the upper hand, but then Finnegan feigns an injury and manages to knock Kirk out, which I find quite entertaining. But let's see what happens in the final few minutes of the episode after Kirk wakes up. So we'll do that. Then I'll make my final thoughts and comments on the episode. So during the final few minutes of this episode, Kirk and regroups with the rest of the away team, and orders them not to think, not to focus on anything. You're at attention, and then we see an old man who come along, who calls himself the caretaker of this place, and kind of explains the mistake that he made, that they didn't realize, and assuming there are others of his kind here who didn't quite realize that Kirk and his people didn't realize what was going on, didn't understand what this planet was. Spock correctly interprets it as an amusement park of sorts, and they make a decision that this place is actually safe after all, because they find that McCoy is alive. That he was taken underground to their to the factory down there, where he was healed up and generated a couple of chorus girls from a Rigel to cabaret. Barrows is understandably a little miffed by that, but manages in her own way to kind of get things back on track between her and McCoy. And Kirk, upon realizing that this place is actually harmless, agrees to let shore leave happen and tells Uhura to tell the rest of the crew to prepare make sure the crew are prepared for the best shore leave they've ever had. Quite frankly, I would agree. If what you can think can come true, and if you're able to control it within reason, I can certainly understand the fun that can certainly be had in all sorts of ways. If only such a place was real. In a lot of ways, I would love to go there myself. But again, because being able to go camping properly the way I've always pictured it to be, or being able to try see different places of the world that I've always wanted to go to, or other planets, or old high school friends, or and to being able to kind of converse with them as I once used to, or maybe in other better ways. I mean, just lots of dreams and fascinations that that I've got myself. But just to wind the episode up, Spock initially says that he'll beam aboard, to take over while the crew beams down. So there's a command officer there. Kirk is initially going to say no, I'll go up myself, but then Ruth comes back. Like, no, I'll stay for a day or two. You can go up, Spock. I've got some things to do down here. Again, let's keep this G-rated, but I'm sure that what Kirk is about to do is not. But anyway, so after a couple of days later, they all beam back, and the episode ends on the one-liner quip that that they often have at Spock's expense. So that was the episode Shore Leave. I have always enjoyed this as as a really good kind of, well, where are people's imaginations in the 24th in the 24th century, and it's quite entertaining to watch, or 23rd century I think it's at that point, but anyway. And I do like to think that were such a place to to exist, it would be able to be used responsibly, but sad to say that with Earth in its place that is at the moment, some people other people very much no, but still, was quite the entertaining episode. I do appreciate those who are listening to this podcast so far. If you do want to contact me to kind of discuss how I've been doing, kind of give me comments or criticisms or whatever, please keep them constructive.